Academy, and I'm going to ask Tosun to switch places with me. I'll queue up. There are no minutes, we have no minutes to approve tonight, so we're just going to move right into your presentation. I'll queue up your presentation for you, and then I'll switch places with you.
Sure.
Assuming I can get there.
Yeah, I would suggest, just as a matter of courtesy to NYMA for making their presentation, that maybe perhaps questions could be held to the end.
Yes, please.
So that way you can work through your deck and all of that, and if anybody has any questions, board members or otherwise, you can defer those and hold those to the end.
Okay. The floor is all yours.
Thank you.
I mean, if you want me,
First.
I was going to say, or if you want me to switch slides, you stand up here, that's fine too, whichever you think is.
Okay, that's fine. Maybe I'll just do it.
Okay.
Since you're already up.
Even better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us. We've presented before, but today I'm here. I'm Tosun Lim. I'm from Pay Architects in New York City. We've been hired as the master planners for NYMA, the school, for their initial planning. And with me today again is Lynn Sen and Andrew Featherston from Colliers, and my colleague Ali Saleh from the Architects. I'll just quickly go through the deck here to give you an overview of what's being planned in terms of buildings and planning for the land use. Here's the overall plan. So I want to start off. The basic objectives of this master plan is to really keep as much of the campus as possible and to reintegrate it into a new campus. Our goal is to maintain the heritage and identity of NYMA, but then build upon it with a new campus that's going to expand to ultimately 1,500 students over the next 10 plus years to reinvigorate the school for academic excellence. I think one of the main things we want to say is that in expanding the school, what we want to do is we want to be able to use the entirety of the campus there, which is about 100 acres, to invigorate portions of the land that haven't been used before, to sort of activate the natural landscape that's there, as well as to reinvigorate or rebuild what is now being used as a campus but has fallen into disrepair. So this is the existing site. Many of you know it because it's been here for many years. But the existing site really is the main campus at the south half of the site, and then there's many houses and small faculty buildings to the north. The overall, right now, the population is 50 students with about 20 faculty. The master plan itself will do two things. It will raise some of the buildings, but also restore many of the existing academic buildings. So in phase one, what campus wants to do is renovate those main campus buildings that are at the south, that are in orange. Those are being started now, and at that point, in the next 2 to 3 years, they want to increase the student population to about 200 to 300 students. In addition to that, they would want to start building some of the buildings that we are proposing, which is in red there, the student center, which is behind Jones Hall, and then one extra dormitory building to the north there, which would accommodate the additional students. Phase two, which goes on starting maybe 2027, 2028, they would continue to renovate those buildings around the main quad at the bottom of the screen, which includes Jones Hall, the academic building, and the dining hall, but then in addition add additional classroom spaces in the Life Sciences Center and the Discovery Center, which I'll explain later what those buildings are, in addition to more housing to accommodate a student population of about 700 people and 150 staff. Phase 3 then would increase the student population to 1,000 students with 200 faculty. And this is a blend of course, of boarding and day students as well, so, but mainly boarding. And so in addition to that, we are continuing to build additional classroom spaces that you see dotted along in red, starting from the main entry at the Innovation Center all the way up Faculty Avenue to the Life Sciences facilities at the North End campus. And finally, phase 4 would be the culmination of the master plan, which is all the final additional academic buildings, including the main academic building that's on the west, and a couple of museums which are at the southwest corner. All new buildings, again, are shown in red. And finally, the addition of all the dormitories to accommodate the final student population of 1,500 students and 400 faculty. And this is, in 2030, 2035, so 10 years from now. And then this is the final layout of the master plan there. Roads will be improved and widened, parking lots will be added, a lot of amenities, which I'll go through very quickly later on, will be added. And finally, at the very, very top, there's also discussion for a convention center or community center site that's to be used not only for the school, but also for the town itself. So how when we finish this project, the vision is to divide this campus into 5 distinctive zones. What you just saw was the phasing plan of how we want to build, over time. But when it's completed, how is this campus organized and how is it used? Well, we envision it as 5 distinct different zones, each zone having its own character. Zone 1 is the original campus, which is the heritage campus that we want to renovate and restore. Zone 2 is the main new campus, which is in blue there to the west of the existing campus. That's the new science and technology or innovation campus. It'll be marked by a much more modern architecture, a freer arrangement of buildings, and more open spaces. Zone 3 is the ecology and sustainability institutes that they plan to install. That's actually taking place in a natural valley or a natural creek that is in the middle of the campus. It's actually a very forested area and actually unused right now. And we hope to make that the life sciences and the sustainability institutes, with nestling the buildings within the forest, to create yet another distinct zone within the NYMA campus. Zone 4 in yellow there is the discovery zone. That's a zone where they will be creating a lot of workshop spaces, builder spaces, maker spaces, and where they also hold their summer camps. You can see the yellow zone is really just a lot of open fields, but what we've done is we've restored some of the existing stables, which is that long bar building, and then a round new building, which will be an exhibition center. And then finally, Zone 5, which is the purple, is the new residential village, which will obviously be where all the dorms are for both faculty and for students. So in diagram-wise, we still want to maintain the Heritage Center or the main campus as the center of the campus. It's where administration and the main buildings will be, but then from there, we will be expanding this road network and the paving network to incorporate all the new zones. And we're doing this by adding these adding to the existing roads by widening them, but also adding new spurs going east and west across the campus. One of the big problems right now is the campus is really oriented in the north-south direction. We want to facilitate movement east and west across the valley, which is naturally occurring in Zone 3, and then also through Jones Hall. So if you look at on the right there, the axis between our new Zone 2 and Zone 1, what we're doing is we are actually recreating an archway through Jones Hall to create an opening between the two zones, 1 and 2, which currently does not exist. This is the existing circulation on the map. These are all 2-lane roads, no sidewalk or bike lanes. What we plan to do in the expansion is to create a new wider road on Faculty Avenue, which runs north-south through the campus. That's exhibited in blue. And then all the red roads will be arteries that will maintain the same width as the existing paved roadways now. In addition, there'll be you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, a dotted line. That will be a new service road that'll be a gravel pathway to the existing roadway system. That too will also be just a 2-lane road. And then we're adding parking. Parking will be done on a as-need basis, in terms of its creation, based on the needs of either the offices or the dormitories. The only place that would have a large amount of parking, paved area, would be the North Convention Center that was proposed to be used with the town. Of course, that one will have to be determined on how many seats or how large the auditoriums are there. That's the only place where a high concentration of parking will really be needed. The rest of it will be determined by the student population as it grows there, and faculty population. In fact, since this is a boarding school, there's really not that much parking really required from the dormitory areas, more for visitors and faculty. So right now, we're proposing about, how many parking spaces, Ali? About 400?
A little over 500.
500, I'm sorry, all told. And what we hope to do is that the parking is not all going to be paved. We're very conscious of adding too much paved area. So only the main parking lots we're proposed to be paved. The rest of them, as we go further north or in some of the areas where there's not so much car traffic, those will remain either gravel or permeable soil. In addition, you can see all these green areas within the circulation system. We're adding a lot more plaza areas and green spaces. They'll be accessible from sidewalks and the roads. And we just want to go through each of the zones now. As I mentioned, there's 5 zones. This is the original zone, the original campus. As we said, we want to maintain its historic character. Jones Hall currently, which you see in the bottom right-hand corner, is a bar building right now with no perforations through it. What we want to do is we want to create, if you can see on the top of the axonometric there, a central archway which will connect the existing courtyard to the new campus that's to its west. This archway now, which we're proposing here, would resemble some of the arches that you see, or Gothic arches that you see in a lot of the boarding schools or the colleges around here. And that really provides a large opening that connects the 2 courtyards of the old campus and the new. In rebuilding that central portion, which is currently a dorm, we would propose that area become repurposed for school clubs or more public functions rather than just the dormitories. Since we're building new dormitories elsewhere, we can give up some of the dormitories that are currently in Jones Hall. The only other addition that we're proposing for the Zone 1, which is the old courtyard, is the revamping of Scarborough Hall, which is their science building to the north. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner that that's the building at the north end of in red there, that's on the north side of the campus. We just want to create a new entrance for that place, something that's small but modern, in keeping with the scale of that courtyard. Now in Zone 2, which is to the west of the original courtyard, you can see that we're proposing all new buildings here, all new organization, but what we want to keep is Faculty Avenue, which is the roadway running north-south through the campus. That is going to be the main artery through the NYMA campus. So you can see that in this building, in this zone, this is the innovation campus. This is all the science and technology and STEM buildings. The buildings we're proposing here are very modern, very open and glassy. They will be places where students, this is the new student center here, which is on the axis with Jones Hall. We want it to be a place which students congregate, and come to during the day. This will be the main axis by which students will go through from their dormitories to the main academic buildings that are here on the campus now. So we see that this Zone 2 is the real center of the campus during the day. Here's some more views of it throughout. This is the new Innovation Center, which is at the entry of the campus. You can see all in the bottom right-hand corner of each drawing the key plan as to where the building is on the campus. This is the new Dickinson Museum, which is actually a new glass atrium that is built out of the existing Dickinson Hall, which was an old dormitory. This is the Hall of Fame Museum, a museum dedicated to all the notable alumni of NYMA. You can see all the buildings are all low scale. They're all about 3 stories, except for this, which is the main academic building. This will be a 4-story building, at least proposed. And this will house all their new labs, state-of-the-art classrooms, auditorium, and this will be one of the main academic buildings on Zone 2. Zone 3, as we were saying, was the new Sustainability Institute or the Life Sciences Studies buildings. This one is, as we said, built into the natural creek and forested area that's in the middle of the campus. And so it's going to have a very different feel from the rest of the buildings. You can see the buildings are perched along the perimeter of the valley there, with the creek in the bottom there. And the buildings themselves will be nestled into the forest. And again, this is an Ecological Sustainability Institute and Life Sciences Center, so we thought that was appropriate for these buildings to be in this environment. As well, we are also building pathways into the forest. Currently, the forest is inaccessible, but by building these buildings with walkways down into the forest, down to the creek, we've created a whole new zone that's accessible to the students, as well as a method for them to cross across the campus along the north end. And you can see how deep the valley is here. Zone 4 is actually the place where we're creating a lot of maker spaces. That long bar building on the left-hand side is the old stables, and we're creating that into workshops, physical workshops, where students not only, in Zone 2, where in the old campus where they're doing their studies, this will be a place where they can do their experimentation, build, and show up in the exhibition center, which is the round circular building. They can display some of their built goods. The athletic fields that are in between the conference center and the discovery center, the round building there, will remain as athletic fields. They will also be the main fields used for the summer programs that are proposed for the campus. And you can see here just the rendered view. And this is the discovery center there. This is an exhibition hall with workshops below. Again, this whole Zone 4 is dedicated to the physical making of either experiments or projects that the students are working outside of their academic classes. And that's on the left there. The bar building is the old stables, which are now renovated into physical workshop spaces. We imagine inside those spaces, mill shops, carpentry rooms, CNC machines, all these laboratories for them to build. This project is the conference center that is still being discussed here, so we don't know how large it is, but we imagine it to be a very public building that's used both by the students and the town. Finally, Zone 5, this is the residential village. This is where all the new dorms are being built. You can see that the idea is that these are modular buildings, both on the left and on the right there. Reason being is as this campus is growing over the years, we will be able to expand it in a systematic way. So this would be the final outlay, allowing for about 800 students here, if necessary. But as you can see, with the system that we envision, we will create the campus and it will grow as the students and the population is needed. The idea of this is to create a sort of enclosed village or residential zone for the students. They'll be here on weekends and after hours. There's a dining hall that's to the left. All the recreational facilities are around there, including the tennis courts and access to other outdoor plazas. And the idea is to create just a enclosed courtyard zone for the students themselves that's off and separated from the campus. And this is the dining hall. These are the enclosed spaces between the buildings here and the facilities that they have. So in terms of overall area, we're talking about a total of new buildings, which are in red, about 575,000 square feet of new construction. The area of the existing buildings that will be kept and renovated totals about 225,000 square feet. So 750 to 800,000 square feet of total building area on this site. We'll just talk about some of the amenities that are being added to this project. We are proposing a low fence that will serve as the new gateway along Faculty Avenue. This is the entrance at Faculty Avenue. That fence, if you see on the bottom right-hand corner, the dotted line shows the extent of the fence from Faculty Avenue along Academy Avenue to the east and the west there. We'll be adding sports facilities, playgrounds, tennis courts, soccer fields, a track in those locations there. Currently, all the athletic fields are to the north where the baseball diamond is. We would be spreading them out to use some of the existing meadows and fields that they have throughout the campus. Within Zone 3 in the Forested Creek, we're proposing other amenities for the students, tree houses that are interspersed among the walkways, small enclosed garden areas. The client has asked for small little gazebos for contemplation and just private areas for students. We've used a lot of water features throughout. What we hope to do is to unite the entire campus through a series of water features that start at the south near the entrance and wind their way through the campus and then ultimately to the natural creek that's in the valley there of Zone 3. As well, we've talked about the addition of the athletic facilities through the existing meadows that they have. Along with the water features, we will be having sculpture in a lot of the plazas that we're creating as, again, a unifying element throughout the campus. And that's it for, in terms of the scope of the master plan. And these are just overall views of the final state. This one looking from the northeast, and then this one looking from the southwest. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's ambitious. And exciting. And I appreciate you sharing it, both with the committee and members of the public who are here. If there are questions, we ought to take advantage of the fact that they're here and ask them. And if not, you can always funnel the questions through the comp plan email, or you can send them to the supervisor. I'm sorry, Josh snuck in while we were. No, you can feel free to.
So can we ask some questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Of course.
Oh,
Of course.
I got a list.
Yeah, I took a couple notes, but I have a question about Zone 2 because it looked like that was the area where all of the buildings were going to be new, and there are a lot of buildings there currently, right? So are, there are two pools, right? There's the gym that has the pool, but I know that pool is not functioning, and then there's the pool across the street that is functioning and working. And the gymnasium's pretty nice, I mean, the floors are really nice in there.
Yeah, I should have, I glossed over that, but
So would all of those be taken down?
So what's being kept is the gymnasium in Dickinson Hall.
Okay.
And then those are gymnasium's being renovated and extended with a new entry, that's the proposal. And then Dickinson Hall, which is the old dormitory.
That's that first building on the left on Faculty Ranch.
Correct, yeah, that gray sort of woodless concrete building. That one's being repurposed as a museum, actually.
Okay.
So, and then the other ones,
There's that other like
There's-
stone looking building between the first brick building
Okay,
and the gymnasium.
that's
That will
Dickinson.
go down.
That-
Oh,
no,
that's gonna
Dickinson.
stay.
That's
Okay,
Dickinson.
so that first brick building will
And
go
then
down.
the one that you're talking about, the residential building that's right next to the entrance, that actually is being raised.
Okay.
Yeah, And so
And then the
they're
pool
keeping that
across-
originally, I believe, as they're trying to transition students, but ultimately it will be raised.
And then the pool that's across the street that works now?
There's an outdoor pool, is that what you were?
No,
No,
there's an
Patillo
outdoor,
Hall.
there's an outdoor pool on the hill, there's an indoor pool that's attached to the gymnasium.
Correct.
Across the street from the
That's
Ah, yes,
gymnasium,
yes,
that's
there's
in
another-
Patillo
Yes.
Hall.
There's another pool.
Yeah, that one's being kept because that's Patillo's being kept.
Okay, cause that one's nice. You just hate to see like,
Exactly.
I mean, I know the building's
It's,
so
I
great,
had
but
that,
you
I'm
need to
sorry I
see-
glossed over,
Yeah.
but that was, in our mapping, we identified which buildings were being raised and which ones were being.
and then the outdoor pool will be raised, right, cause that's
It
full of
was,
leaks
yeah,
and
we
things.
originally wanted to keep it, but,
And
yeah.
is that, the blue there that I see, is that a new outdoor pool?
Yeah, so that is the pool there, but since that drawing,
It's
we-
gonna go
it's
away.
gonna go away,
Yeah, cause
yes.
it doesn't look as good as the drawing.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. We wanted to keep, we really wanted to keep it, because that was a nice amenity. And actually, there was a small house there.
Yes, there's a little
That
house next
was,
to it.
I thought was the president's house or something, we don't know what it is, but that was the reason the pool was adjacent to it, we were trying to keep that house, but in the end.
I can assure you it wasn't the president's.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, yeah.
Suzanne, you had some
Yes.
questions?
I did. So I've, you know, we all live here in the community, so we've driven around, and I guess my two thoughts that I have immediately is you're not nearly have enough parking, assuming that these students don't have cars is
So,
not.
to one point about that, parking spaces are limited, because we didn't want to, you know, put too much coverage on the land, but we purposely widened Faculty Avenue so that it's essentially 3 lanes, with the idea that actually that could be parking
Oh, I
along
see.
the roads.
Okay,
Yeah, that way we reduce the amount of actual asphalted parking area.
and so with parking, it's because the cars are coming, and I'm not seeing any additional entrance or egress, so at the moment, the majority of the people enter through Academy.
And then up Faculty Avenue.
Well, from Academy onto Faculty, I'm just concerned with this amount of students and faculty going in and out and propose really wonderful spaces, sporting events, things like that. So you're gonna have school buses, you're gonna have all this other stuff of teams going back and forth. Are you proposing entrance egress onto 9W? Because this is, a
So-
lot of this is facing 9W.
Yeah, we're proposing that Faculty Avenue at its northern end connects to the streets up there, so it becomes.
That's a
past-
small road too, though, at the other end.
It is, but it's an egress or access road. Right now it's called Scott's, is it
A
Scott's
Sloop
Road?
Hill?
Sloop Hill, I mean, that's
Sloop Hill.
not a very large road, so basically you're proposing that most people would, if you're coming to the campus for whatever
Yeah,
activity,
you go
are
Faculty
gonna
Avenue.
go, have to leave 9W and go on Academy and then work their way into the academy, into the
Correct.
facility from there.
Faculty Avenue would be the main entrance, which is why we're widening it.
And,
Thing to note too is like most of the students are be boarding, so they wouldn't have the cars.
That's the
Right.
thing, so.
but they do,
The main problem would be sporting events and
Yeah.
any public events that you guys propose, you know.
I'm just gonna, I mean, you're gonna have sleeping for 1,000, but you're proposing 1,500, so that's another 500 students that are gonna come with mom and dad's car and they're gonna come over. I mean, it's just, parking's challenging now already when you go, when we've
Yeah.
had sporting events there, it's kind of a little.
So that 1,500 students would be also sort of, the plan for this, as I understand, is that it's not only high school, it's sort of postgraduate and then also sort of evening classes for the community as well. So that extra, we gotta think about the timing of all these sort of things, because, you know, there's classes that'll be held in the evenings versus everybody coming during the day. I can imagine the day students, I mean, if you look at any boarding school now, some of the larger ones, which are 800 students, maybe only 200 of those are day students, so.
But you have 400
that's-
faculty proposed, I mean, they're all
And
gonna.
they live there, they'll be on campus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just am concerned about the academy, it being a really small road, really, and the traffic, and then, so there won't be any entrance or egress to 9W from.
Not being planned.
And are you proposing any sustainable, like geothermal heating, solar panels, any?
Yeah, as, sustainability is obviously part of their plan. When we get into the planning of the buildings, that will be that would be the primary for engineering. I don't know if they're going for lead, platinum on
we're
these projects.
considering that.
So,
lead and
all those
well
sort of lead things
program.
would be considered during the planning of the buildings themselves.
And then I have to ask only because we've suffered from the golf course halfway through when they ran out of money. This is a very ambitious project. It looks lovely. I'm just kind of, where is the financing coming from all of this? Would we be assured that you don't get halfway through and then we are looking at a war zone of construction and abandoned buildings?
Yeah,
I'll leave that to the plan.
the new chairman has a chain of the education facility in China, in London. So part of the equity is from there, their profits over there. And also we were considering some like construction financing here. And when we grow this campus, we have more income. Right now we are making
Right.
loss every year.
Sure.
Hopefully we can make some money to grow. Fortunately, I think it's not like one night project, so it could be like 5 or even 10 years. So I think we can gradually and grow this campus.
So actually, just building on Suzanne's point, so the idea then is you're building out the different zones, you get one established, kind of get that sustained, right? And then from there, move on to the growth of the second zone, and then continue all the way through as you're,
Well, actually, the phasing plan's a little different from the zoning plan.
Okay.
Yeah, they want to, they'll need dormitories first and foremost, right? So that zone 5's always gonna have to get started. Then they want to start their sustainability institute, so parts of zone 3 will get started. So at the beginning of this deck, I was showing the phasing plan, which is different from the zoning plan. The zoning plan is really activated when the campus is finished, right? And,
Right.
So each zone's gonna get a little bit.
gotcha.
Yeah, and by answering your
Yes.
question, so we will have a lot of international exchange students, and for the summer program, winter program, so there might not be like 2,000 people in the campus at the same time, maybe 1,000 to 1,200, something like that. And for the parking space, if we don't have enough parking space, we will consider to do some underground.
Yeah, I wanted to offer a couple thoughts, if I may. First of all, NYMA, under its current leadership, is making improvements already to the existing buildings that are out there. They're being renovated. There was a recent ribbon cutting for Patilla Hall, which has been completely renovated inside. And so like that's progressing and can progress right now. So all those renovations that are happening in the existing campus is something that they can do regardless of the comprehensive plan process or even like the planning board process, because they're taking existing buildings and they're going through the building permit process and are able to do that. The purpose for tonight's presentation to the Comprehensive Plan Committee, in my view, was to introduce their plans for the future to the Comprehensive Plan Committee so that you can consider it as you're finalizing the Comprehensive Plan as to whether or not you want to make any recommendations for the town board to consider. But this is at the very, very beginning stages, like for instance, and we haven't even really cracked open, what would be necessary for the full scope of this project to happen. I can tell you that it will involve town board level review, as well as obviously planning board review. It will require some zoning amendments to make this happen. Which will be discretionary, full public hearings before the planning board and the town board, importantly. There was one work session with the planning board that technical staff that NYMA's representatives attended. We did discuss, a number of technical issues, including traffic would be a primary area of study that needs to be evaluated. Water and sewer are also additional ones, and I think everyone recognizes that the level of what's being proposed here is going to trigger an environmental impact statement, so that there would be a full environmental review associated with that, with plenty of opportunities for the public to weigh in on These are, like I said, just beginning stages, but it was really to introduce you and give you a sense of the concept, since it would be an error, in my opinion, for these plans to be developed and then eventually go to the town board, and at the same time that this comprehensive plan meeting is really, you're finishing your work at this point. And so you want to, I think, be in a position to at least weigh in on, the proposals and the revitalization of this historic campus.
I guess Amy, Maureen, and I, from planning board standpoint, we look at this and realize that this is just very conceptual. The process that the developers are gonna have to go through is very complicated. That's why there's an engineer here. That's why there are architects here. I think part of what we want to, as Dominic said, we just want to be familiar with what they have in mind, so that when we get to the point where we're making recommendations to the town board, we can just factor that into our thought process.
And so that was my third question was, so what is it zoned now?
It's zone PCD, except the
And
part,
highway commercial.
the part that borders 9W is highway commercial.
Can I ask a background? In its past, how many students, I know we don't have a lot of students now, but in the past, what was the?
600 was
600?
was the max back in a few years
Okay.
back.
Okay.
I have not so much a question as a statement. And I don't know if maybe you've already considered this, and maybe this is a question for Colliers more than for the architects, but there is a parcel to the east of the existing campus that has the Ottawild Creek that runs through it, drops down to the Hudson River, and would abut your plans for a ecology and sustainability area there, which, conceptually looks really nice. And I just wanted to mention it with the hope that maybe that would be kept in mind as a possibility, something additional to the project that could provide more open space, green space for students, for recreation, lots of different things.
You mean off-site from us? You mean?
It's right next door, right to the east of the
Yeah, I've
proposed
seen that
dormitory
creek.
area.
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah. It's quite a ravine, actually.
It is. It's
Steep
very
drop, right?
dramatic and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful.
And that's owned by the town now, or is that?
It's owned by a private commercial
I see,
entity.
okay.
Okay, we were joined by Neil Nebesky, who is the chairman of the planning board. If you have something that you think would be appropriate to
We love it
contribute.
until we don't.
That sounds vaguely familiar. And as I pointed out, we were also joined by our supervisor, and Josh, if you have anything that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I mean, I just want to say that, in my mind, this is great. It's been about 10 years of not much happening on the campus, and I'm very pleased that under new leadership, there's this proposal that's, for a master plan that's coming forward, and, it's got to go through all the steps and the proper procedures, but, I feel optimistic for the first time in years about what's happening on NYMA, and I hope that the town embraces this, and, I think it was important that this was live streamed and recorded. I didn't want the public to see this tonight, so at least they can start becoming familiar with it, so that no one can come out and say, "Oh, this is a secret, and we didn't know about this." And so, I'm glad that it's now out there, and hopefully, people in the community will go out and start talking about it. I do think it's very positive, but it's got to go through a bunch of different steps, and it's going to take a while to get the master plan approved, but, everyone's going to do their job, and in the end, I think it's going to be great.
I'd just like to point out, I was still on the planning board when we saw another master plan that probably wasn't as expansive as this one, but that was the Storm King Art Center master plan, which went through rigorous reviews over 3 years? I don't even remember how long. And they had the right consultants, and it was done exceptionally well. And from what we've seen here, it looks like we're about to have a repeat of that. They have hired their consultants. Their consultants have put together a presentation that it far exceeds anything that we would normally see at this stage of the planning process, and we're just embarking on that. And the fact that they're doing this at the time that we're following the charge of the town board and preparing a new comprehensive plan, it allows us as the committee, and it allows the community to have input and feedback so that their consultants aren't operating in the dark. If there are no more questions, thank you all for coming. You're all welcome to stay. We're gonna move on to our regular meeting.
Thank you so much.
Because some of us, wanna go home.
We're into it, thank you.
Thank you so much.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Let me get out of here for a second.
Oh, watch your-
Before I kill myself.
Yeah, watch your-
Booby traps.
Thanks for coming. We're gonna move on to our regular agenda, which you're welcome to stay for, but it will be brief. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now I gotta find the agenda, which is open someplace. Because I don't remember what it is. But I'm sure you do.
We still.
We are, because Oscar's getting paid the,
Because he just loves doing these things.
Do you have a selfie camera on that, Oscar, so you turn around and show you should.
Maybe another time, never right now.
okay. The next thing on the agenda is the review of the public forum we held a couple of weeks ago. And we can spend as much or as little time on that as we want to.
And we did, you forwarded some feedback from folks, and, I mean, I'm not talking about the survey forms, but you received some comments. and-
Oh,
and
that,
they all-
so the feedback, they had the feedback
All of that came
forms.
to us?
Yeah, we got
Yep.
there weren't that many, people filled out the,
No, I mean like comments that were submitted to
What
the
it-
email address.
Oh,
Whatever,
yeah.
whatever I got, you
We
got.
got.
there's
Okay.
like three,
Yeah, there were three.
major,
And my recollection, because
Other
I
than
didn't commit
Sally
anything
Faith.
to memory, I still probably have them here. They didn't necessarily relate
well, they did.
to,
I mean, so it was Elizabeth Iannone and Lauren
yeah,
Rancanelli, I'm sorry, I don't wanna
I have
mispronounce it, or the two people, and then Sally Faith wrote in that
Yep.
she could enjoy watching it. I think that's really,
That was
that was the three
Yeah.
major ones.
yeah, well, I think that was all of them,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. And, oops, I mean, I have them here, you may have them.
Yeah.
Computer just froze,
Yeah.
so let's unhave them here. But, I mean, if there's comments about their comments, now's the time.
I mean, I felt like, I had asked you to put together some of the commentary. I'll say I didn't have a chance to review it really before the last 2 days. I feel that these are very general.
Well, that's why, I was gonna ask, that's why but a summary, did you wanna actually see verbatims?
Well,
Like from people?
because as what happens sometimes is that when AI sort of stumbles it together, we get, it becomes a more general overview. And I think that in this case, people had some very specific things, some very specific commentary that they wanted to comment on it, and I think at the very least, I'd like to maybe have a chance to look at it
Sure.
again. I don't know if anybody
That-
else,
that-
because I
that's
feel
fine.
like this summary is it's very general, and it's overall, and it does capture sort of more or less everybody like this and everybody like that, but those individual voices aren't captured, and because for instance, one of the things I heard very loud and clear was that people were looking for specificity. They were looking not for general recommendations, that was their criticism or concern about the last comprehensive plan, was that it was like, I'm gonna make this up, it's not a quote, but please make sure there are more trees, rather than the committee recommends that there are 10 trees per quarter acre of every street, or whatever it is. And that their concern is by having these kind of general statements that then changes won't happen or incorrect changes won't happen. Like, they were looking for some really specific wording in our recommendations.
I think we made the point that we're not at that
I understand.
point yet. And when we are at that point, if it's necessary to live stream another meeting while we're discussing that stuff, we can do that. Or when we reach the point where we are reviewing the entire document at once, we can then get more specific. And that document ultimately becomes a public document.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the document itself is close to being completed, obviously. You know, you're within a couple meetings, I would say, from finishing your work. And when that document's finished, it'll be turned over to the town board. If the town board, finds it acceptable, they'll move it on to a public hearing. It'll all be available for the comment to.
Understood.
Yeah.
I mean, the purpose of that meeting was for the public to give us some feedback of where we are and where we're going. And the feedback that I got is they're, in this comprehensive plan, they are looking for very specific recommendations. They're not looking for the generalities. They don't wanna just hear we should have more trees, they wanna know how many trees. I'm not saying we can't do all of that, but that's not in this summary, like, that was loud and clear to me. And then I think at some point, it doesn't, not tonight, obviously, but I think I'd like to see some of the very specific comments that some of the people had about their recommendations.
I would also argue though that isn't the idea of the plan not to be so specific, that it is to drive change that could drive zoning changes or planning, changes, and that when you create the zoning codes, that's when you get into specificity,
Absolutely.
right? It's not, the comprehensive plan is not the document where you get specific. We give guidelines, like, we should, I would disagree that we should be, like, as your example, 10 trees per every, so I think that is beyond the scope of what we're supposed to do here.
I believe our charge is to provide recommendations that then drive the
Right.
zoning.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And I'm confident that is where we're gonna get to. It may take us a couple more meetings. And I understand that, people wanted more specificity. Maybe we didn't do a good enough job describing what the purpose of the meeting was. But I think, the purpose of the meeting was to, as Jason put so eloquently, to determine whether we were aligned with what we got. And I think the feedback that we got during the meeting, other than we don't have enough specificity, the feedback that we got was, in general, we're aligned with the input that we got. So I think, we're not done, but we're close to being done. 1, 2, 3 more meetings, I don't know what the number's gonna be. We'll be in a position to take the input that we've gotten from wherever we've gotten it from and apply it to what will ultimately be our finished product. And then it's up to the town council as to what they do with it.
But we can make more specific recommendations.
Of course
to
we
the
can.
point of saying, like, always bring up the warehouse, but there was a comment that the previous comprehensive plan wasn't specific enough about that would be out of character with our community. And so in recommending buildings that are being produced that in character with the community, one could say perhaps size no more than whatever, or larger than, 10 times larger than any other structure in the community, is sort of giving a more specific guideline,
I agree with you, but I also, having been on the planning board, there were cases where that jumped up and bit us where, because there were projects proposed that couldn't be built without modification of the zoning. I mean, there was one, I don't know if it was a comp plan or the zoning that resulted from the plan that I worked on 25 years ago. One of the recommendations was that nothing bigger than 25,000 square feet could be built in Cornwall. 25,000 feet is a very small building when you're talking about commercial. I mean, every couple of years out at Star, they ask for another 50,000 foot addition. I don't know how many times they've done that. So we have to tread lightly on that. That's the only point that I'm trying to make. And I think that, you know, between Dominic and Kristen, we will probably get some very good guidance on that when we've reached that point.
I think the bigger issue with the meeting is that the bullets were very high level. And so like that I think was some of the specificity that they were that they were looking for that was lacking. So I think that next time, you know, I mean the one guy stood up and said like, yeah, you could have given me it all, I wasn't gonna read it anyway. So there's that too, right? So just but somewhere between what we did and the whole document, right?
Yep.
So maybe we just need to like have a if we do another one of these things, we have a session where it's put together and then we give our feedback on that and kind of tweak it a little bit and say maybe we need a little
Yeah,
more.
that's something that,
Because I think that's what they were talking about, not necessarily like I want to read everything that's in here, but maybe
Right.
just they wanted a little deeper dive than we
They wanted the
did.
next level down.
yeah.
Right.
So we can certainly consider doing another one. Let's see where
Yeah,
we're
let's
at
see where we go.
after another meeting or two before we make that decision.
And some of these very specific things that, let's say, Elizabeth Yanoni suggested, and I'm not saying that they are good or bad, but some of these proposed solutions, is that something that gets put in later now, like penalties for vacancies or architectural oversight committee, those types of recommendations? Like she specifically was recommending that they form an independent architectural oversight committee that would somehow be members of the community and they would somehow come up with the vision of what the architecture should look like, and then they would have that oversight. And again, I'm not suggesting that's the solution, I'm just wondering, at what point do we consider these specific suggestions?
I mean, we have considered that, haven't we? We considered that in one of our chapters, I can't remember.
Well, we talked about that, the concept would be good, and
But I
she
think
actually.
that's what we want is the concept level.
Right. And like leave it to the town board to decide how it gets implemented.
How it
Yeah,
gets
I-
implemented.
Like, I don't think it's our thing to say it should be an independent review board. That's
No.
for the town board to say whether it should go to the planning board
You're
or
absolutely
they
right.
have the wherewithal to go out and form another committee. Because that, forming another committee is another group of people
Yep.
that you have to get together,
Right.
so,
And-
you know.
Exactly, no, I was thinking the same thing when that person made that
Right.
comment. Like, it's difficult to, you know, you're never gonna make everyone in that room happy
Right.
regardless, but, there's so many comments with respect to economic development, moving things forward, why are there vacant buildings, why are all these things, but in order to get through, you should actually have to jump through 6 additional hoops, go to a different board,
Exactly.
we should require, and so it's a balance.
Staffing those boards, you know, like everybody
But that's
here
also
is like
true,
you're
your
all
board had, the planning board
volunteers,
has a
yeah.
vacancy on it, and it's had one for quite a while, so,
Yeah,
So-
and
a
I would
balance.
say all of those things, as you know, as a former chair of the planning board, one of the things that I considered often as the chair is that the more times these people come see me, the more money it costs them. And I never want the cost of them having to pay for the town lawyer, the town engineer, and all of those things to be, I don't want the process to be cost prohibitive. Now, if I have to go in front of another board outside of the planning board to have architectural review, there's gonna
Meets once
be
a month.
maybe a town
Or-
attorney there or
Right.
maybe an architect, there's gonna be somebody else there that they're paying for, so it's more money in escrow and more money out of their pocket, so
And I
I'm
don't
really
think-
thoughtful when it comes to those things.
One
It seemed to
of our
me-
charges is to streamline the process.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if we create, and I just, you know, I think back for over 20 years of discussing architectural review in Cornwall, and every time we come up with the same objections, one of which is, it's gonna cost more money. But, you know, Dominic actually keyed on something. We have trouble filling the seats. We have a vacancy on the ethics board. And the ZBA is full, the planning board has a vacancy.
Yeah, it's cause I stole your guy's name.
Well, no. Yeah, well, that's one of
There's
them.
the vacancy.
But, you know, we have to be cognizant of that. We actually had more applicants for this committee than some of the other
Because
committees.
it's a term commitment.
Yeah,
It's harder to fill the others.
no, I understand. But we have to be cognizant of that when we make our recommendations, because if we're putting another burden on the town board to fill committee A, B, or C, it really doesn't matter. We also have to, you know, really? It's my son calling to wish me a happy birthday.
Chuck Berry calling?
Yeah, that's how I know who it is. Anyway,
I guess one of the things that I think about, you know, we received some comments, there are actually some good points. I guess, I feel like we should be looking at what we've already suggested to make sure that these general concepts are captured. And then, you know, if there are things that aren't captured, maybe talk about them. But I'm hesitant to go too hard on incorporating the specific comments of an individual, because.
Oh, I wasn't suggesting, I was just
Yeah,
wondering,
yeah.
when is the appropriate time to consider those comments?
right,
That-
right.
That's where I was going, not
right,
that
but
we
I think
should
if-
have her thing, but it's,
if
at
we're
what point do we incorporate or not? Or
Right.
say, yes, it was a good idea, no, it's not a good idea, or whatever.
But if we're receiving comments, I feel like it behooves us to make sure that we are, you know, maybe capturing that stuff somewhere.
So the other thing that I've noticed in some of this correspondence we've got, I'm not commenting on the quality of the comments, but some of them have nothing to do with the comp plan. And we have to be cognizant of that, because we're,
It's not in,
we're charged with creating a document that the town board can either adopt or not to help drive zoning decisions. And there are things, you know, if it relates to, you know, taxes, that's not a comp plan issue. So we just have to be cognizant of that, that's all. I have the agenda up.
Sustainability chapter,
Yeah.
Okay.
right? I think that's
So
the.
let's go. Chapter 7, sustainability.
I think it's chapter 8.
It is chapter eight.
It's community services is actually going to be chapter 8.
Okay.
Sustainability is gonna go
Oh, you're moving around.
after, well, this is where it was in the first place, so I'm just putting it back where it was. Or after environmental resources, I suppose. So I'm not gonna go over the overview, thank you, Ted, for drafting this expanded overview of this chapter. I thought that it was lovely and appropriate and succinct. But I will start right with B, the goal. I think the goal is, again, very basic, high level, and captures what we're trying to do here. And the recommendations are broken down in a couple of different categories. I think that they're pretty straightforward. A lot of these, I think, if you got a chance to read the text, I'm sorry this came out today, I was away for the weekend.
It came from you, right, Lynn?
It did, I've got it up on the screen if you want.
I think one of the points that the overview makes is that
Screen.
Yes, that was my next step.
there are points in these recommendations that are made in other points in this plan, which I think is a good thing. I think it's good that this is kind of reinforcing, or that the other chapters, or they're reinforcing each other, they kind of go together. So smart growth principles, compact mixed use, that recommendation is also in the chapter about Main Street revitalization, and it's also found here. Discouraging development in floodplains and along the banks and riparian areas along wetlands and streams. That is in the environmental section, and it's supported again here. Those things, it's important, I think, because I think a lot of people don't really understand what sustainability is, what climate resiliency is. So I think that it's good that you're kind of bringing these things, you're kind of reinforcing, we like these things because it makes sense from an economic development perspective, it makes sense from a walkability perspective, it makes sense from an environmental sustainability perspective, and it makes sense here too. So I think you're kind of connecting these dots, which I think is very good. Tree canopy is another one. We are making that recommendation in other parts of the zoning, in other parts of the comprehensive plan, and they'll be carried through into zoning, requiring, instead of just currently the town of Cornwall zoning code landscaping recommendations are very general, in that a landscaping plan is required, but there's nothing about how many, this is where we get to that annoying, like how many trees per square feet, that's for zoning. There are certain codes, the town of Wallkill probably being the best example that I can think of, that you have to actually plant so many shade trees per parking space or per square foot of paved parking. A planted island in a parking lot every so many spaces. Things like that I think will encourage additional tree canopy in these big expansive parking lots, so that we don't just see this heat island is what the discussion in here was, but you don't just have the sea of pavement, and again that's a benefit for numerous reasons. ones I wanted to talk about updating building code, energy efficient building codes, New York State stretch code. I wondered if anyone has any input there,
I
because
do. I do.
I'm interested in feedback on that.
I have concerns on that, really just from, I mean, I'm pro-environment, don't get me wrong, but I'm also, cognizant of the cost of doing some of those things. And that, again, is, you don't want to discourage someone from developing something in our town because it's cost prohibitive, because you've put these requirements into the zoning code. So, I think just, you have to think about, like, cause the greener alternative is not always the cheaper alternative. Yes, maybe down the road, eventually it might be, but it is not always upfront. So I'm sensitive to updating zoning code, to that, just because I don't want the code to make things cost prohibitive for people.
The thing that concerns me about that, I mean, you have a perfectly valid point. If you want to incorporate these kind of requirements in new construction, that's a much simpler thing to do than when you're doing a renovation. And I think when you're doing a renovation, it may add disproportionate expense that may prevent somebody
Right.
from doing a renovation on a house that needs renovation.
Or a
So-
building that was built in 1850.
Right, or
More important.
a building on Main Street that they wanna put a business in, but they need to do major upgrades to, right? Because the electric's outdated, the heating's outdated, and now the code says your heating has to meet these green requirements, so.
Well, I think we just have to be cognizant, as you said, of the costs associated with some of the requirements. And I'm, in general, I'm in favor of
Yeah.
the requirements.
I mean,
Yeah, I think, I wonder if maybe there's some way that we can, rather than make them requirements, somehow incentivize them,
Well,
by
well,
offering.
I thought that too, but then, you're not gonna give, I think it's difficult to, I don't know, it's difficult to give like a tax incentive or,
You
can't
don't
do
wanna get
that.
into that.
Yeah, you
I
can't,
mean,
you
unless
can't
the
do
state,
that. Right.
state or the county is offering it,
Right.
I can see smoke
Like-
coming out of Josh's
No,
ears
well,
right
that's
now.
exactly what I'm thinking. I'm
Yeah.
thinking like the town can't incentivize people with tax rebates or whatever. Yeah, like
Absolutely not.
the state will do that if you get like solar and all that stuff. But again, there's still an upfront cost to that, right? And
Absolutely.
so.
But we can't, hang on guys, you can't just ignore this either, because you can't just turn around and say, well, if you have an old building, then whatever you guys come together with is okay,
No,
like that.
we're not saying that. We're just saying, I don't think that, I kind of think it's unfair to put it.
Can I ask, do you know what the surrounding towns have? I mean, do other towns in this area have similar requirements in their building code? Because my fear would be like if we did require this in our building code and other towns didn't, then if I'm then I'm not gonna do my project in Cornwall. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
like
go
just
somewhere
like
else.
Beacon, like think of towns like a Warwick or a Rhinebeck or like towns like that.
I'm not
Stretch code is-
familiar with anyone that requires it.
But one of the things you have to be careful of when you start comparing communities is when you compare towns and villages to cities, because the pool of state money for cities is different than the pool of state money for Cornwall.
Also the number of employees and the resources that they have, so in Beacon, where you have a building department of maybe 5 to 6 individuals, in Cornwall, if you're talking about changing a building code, you have a building inspector that's been working with the New York State Building Code, and obviously they're taking classes every year, but you're gonna have to send that building inspector, who's one person, to
Who's already
classes.
stretched.
Who's, correct, he's one person and you're gonna have
And when
to,
he's in classes, he's not inspecting buildings.
Oh, I mean,
correct, and
I
then
know
Josh is
that-
getting those phone calls.
I know that stretch code has been adopted in other communities, a number of them down in Westchester, so that gets to what we were just talking about resources and
it's different.
money
pool of
and
money.
things.
That's the thing.
But I also hear what Suzanne is saying in that there should be some way that we can encourage the town to consider these things moving forward as they become more integrated into state policy or
I mean,
county
maybe
policies
the difference is a new
as
build.
costs come
Yeah.
down for these things.
Yeah.
So here's
Yeah.
a way we can do that. We make a recommendation that the town council comes up with an incentive system. It's called passing the buck.
Dominic, are you familiar with any municipalities that use either green building codes or New York State stretch code? Any municipalities around here?
No.
None of, I don't
Not
think
in
any
this
of
area.
mine. Warwick might be one that I could see doing it, just because I know some of their codes are
I mean,
much more
sometimes when it's
progressive.
like a big development, like right when the art center did, there were certain things
Beacon
that
is
we did at the
correct.
art center because you get certain
Right,
certification,
that's from
you
the
get.
county or the state.
Right, that's what
or
I'm
even
saying,
federal.
so, but like,
Yeah.
none of that came, yeah, that's where I'm going with this,
Yeah.
none of that came from the town. It
According
was
to
all,
Google,
you meet
Beacon-
these types of building requirements because then you get certain
So
reimbursements.
maybe we.
We're also talking a whole different scale.
So how about,
Yeah, but it may be, right, but, you know, some other development could
couldn't
come, I mean, like the NYMA development could come, now, were you to put in your building code that all of that had to be a certain way?
So-
LEED certified?
No,
There you
but,
go.
okay, that's really,
Yeah, but
so,
that's what I'm saying.
but you could do
That's
this,
reasonable.
couldn't you do this like in Europe, they did this is how they got tremendous turnaround in their communities. It wasn't that, they came up with a percentage and said that in your renovation of these older spaces, you had to reduce your energy consumption by X percentage over a period of time. So you weren't telling them how they had to spend their money,
That's
you
a-
were just telling them
That's an
that they
interesting
have
approach.
to reduce it. So you're renovating your building, you have this opportunity. And so, and then it could be depending on how you did it. It could be you just put in new windows, which are cutting your energy consumption,
But
or
that-
you're
that's
putting in
also a cost
electric,
thing
or
too. I'm just
no,
like-
but you're not telling, you're telling them that you have to go in the right direction. You can't just replace what was there. You have to make an effort, and we're not telling you how to spend the money. You have to reduce it by 10%. So then you could figure out what is the or whatever the percentage is. I'm not,
I
but
actually think that's brilliant.
Oh yeah, what's the percentage? Oh, I guess some question is also too, how much more money are we talking about?
How do you measure that?
well, you know what their energy consumption is.
Well, if
No,
you-
but that's also the right question too, how do we measure it?
Right,
right, so-
and who measures that?
Right.
Like, how is that measured and who's following up and measuring that? That's another thing now you're placing on the town building inspector to be responsible for.
You can't always just take the easy path, guys.
No, you can't, but encouraging and putting something in the code are two different things.
Yeah, and I like the concept, but now that Maureen's brought it up, enforcement, I don't know how you enforce it. And I know from having worked with Gary, you know, he's already stretched thin. We had a second building inspector, he's got an assistant, and
Well,
he's
I-
gotta go to school too.
I
So,
think
mean,
if
you know,
we're-
factor all that in.
If we're making very general recommendations, you know, like going back to what we were saying, like, okay, so that, we're not getting too specific, we're sort of generally saying these are kind of ideal things that we'd like to see. I have a problem with getting bogged down on our current building inspector and his workload.
Okay.
Like,
I agree.
those things
Well,
change.
that's not our I mean, it's not our
Yeah,
problem. Like,
right.
we're here about the solution, not the, like, the
Right.
specific.
Those are barriers that we just have to figure out to overcome,
Right.
right? Like,
Well, actually, no, we don't have to figure out how to overcome
we don't have
it.
to figure out.
And I agree, that we
Sorry.
shouldn't be proposing like, you know, total pie in the sky stuff that's gonna chase away.
No, but you could
growth,
recommend that in
but-
any renovation that happens, they have to try to reduce their energy consumption by whatever percent. And that new construction needs to try to use the more available.
I don't know that, again, though, us saying reduced by 10% is something we should be saying. I think we should
Well,
say we encourage that renovation, new construction, any of it, move in a more environmentally friendly manner. And then the town board
Then
and
the
the
town board will
zoning
get
board
specific.
comes and says,
so
we think it
wishy-washy.
should be 10% more.
I-
And because we are the town board and we are gonna put these
Well,
things
they
in
know the
place.
resources that
I,
they can.
Right.
I think that's the
Right,
answer.
right.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
Certain
we-
decisions have to be done by the elected officials.
Well,
Right.
right.
Like, so
Ultimately,
we encourage
all
that
decisions have to be
things
made
be
by
more
the
energy
elected officials.
efficient, and we encourage like that the town board put
But you
procedures in
can't
place.
make a specific recommendation to say like 10%
But I don't
or
think that
something.
that's in our purview. That's
Otherwise,
my
you just
opinion.
have, it would be really nice. Everybody should use less water, everyone should use less electricity, and everybody should be more mindful of their resources.
But
Great.
that's not like, is it the comp plan's role to tell people how much water to use? No.
No. No, but when we're making recommendations to the town board, I'm comfortable where we're headed with this. I like the idea of, you know, encouraging them to reduce energy consumption, we'll just use that as the
Yeah,
example.
that's fine.
But I don't know what the number is, and I don't know that the number is,
That's not our
Our-
responsibility. I was just
you
using
know,
an
New York-
example.
New York
That's
stretch
for them
code-
to go.
New York stretch code is just an example here, you know, like
Well, we
NYSERDA.
can say considering things such as New
Yeah,
York
yeah,
stretch code.
NYSERDA
Right.
has tons
There
of
you go.
resources out there about New York stretch code, there's training, there's guides, and so it's something that people can go out there and find and go like, oh yeah, you know,
So
I
like
get
in
it.
our recommendation, we could say, you know, examples such as, you know, New York stretch code, NYSERDA recommendations and so forth, right? Because
Certification
we're,
for construction.
I think we've probably taken this to where we need to take it, and now we leave it up to Kristen,
Kristen's
who's
got it.
making copious notes.
I'm trying to,
Formulate.
trying to weave thoughts together.
You know the sentiment we're going for,
you got,
right?
you got, yeah, I'm trying to believe in you, Kristen.
This specific discussion really excites me about what we're trying to accomplish. Because this is something tangible that we can wrap our arms around.
And I think as we move forward with this section in particular, I think it would be helpful, and I'd be happy to compile something. It'd be helpful to look and see what other communities are putting into their comp plans
Yeah.
in this area,
That would be helpful.
because it is kind of a new area. And there are folks that are, you know, sort of chomping at the bit to incorporate this kind of stuff into future planning, so.
I mean, that climate smart community certification has tons of recommendations,
Yes.
very specific recommendations. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
at the end of the day, if this is a certification that we actually would be interested in pursuing as a community, you will have to put in those someone, not us, but someone will have to put in those types of recommendations that you are reducing the water and the this and this by percentages, or you won't get certified.
That's another committee's job.
Well, but also, which is to Suzanne's point too, I mean, those were things that also came out in the current state
No, I-
assessment, right? That people were open to having all of that
And they
implemented.
came
You
to
know,
that meeting
the climate smart city
also.
stuff and,
Yeah, but that-
Until it's their house and their wall.
Well,
That-
that's the thing, right? That's always
They
the
want
rub, that's
other
always the
people- They would
rub.
like other people to
Exactly.
do all of these great things. They would like buildings in their downtown that's not their house.
But we still gotta go based on what
And
the
to be fair,
community
climate
ultimately
smart
wants.
communities is more about municipal
Yeah,
properties
absolutely.
than it is about private.
I think we could say, like you mentioned, that the town should consider all these great resources
Yeah.
and leave it at that,
Energy
without
conservation
saying
and-
something as specific as update building code. Because
Yeah, because we'll leave it to them.
Yeah.
They can decide if they're gonna do that,
That's fair.
based on the resources
Right.
that
No,
they
but
might or
I'm-
may not.
I'm glad that you brought up your points, and I'm glad that you brought up your points, because it's starting to coalesce into something that we can turn into a recommendation.
And in fact, as I'm looking at what I sent to Kristen, like, the mention of modern building codes it's a very sort of meaningless and subjective thing to say.
Well, that
I
was
think
one
that
of
can
the
be expressed a
comments,
little
right?
differently, right?
Wasn't that one of the comments from the meeting that people were saying, what does modern whatever
Yes.
mean? That was
Oh, right,
something
'cause
Yeah,
people
the
were
word
saying.
modern.
modernization,
I mean, we didn't have this.
modernization.
Yeah,
At the time, but yeah,
You're
there's
saying
latched on
modern uses.
right, but they didn't understand that, they were like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, yeah, modernizations can, well, what do you mean by
You mean
modern?
so
What is
saying
it?
modern,
Right,
just
right.
say energy efficient,
Yeah,
or-
be more specific.
Yeah.
So are we ready to move on to critical infrastructure?
Yes.
Yeah, and I edited this a little bit because because the
might have
town obviously
something to
doesn't
say.
have any real control over the power grid, so we took that out.
Mm.
And we went with water and sewer infrastructure, emergency services, generators at emergency services is obviously critical. Those are the things, all of you got a crash course in emergency services preparedness last year, right?
2 years ago, but
2
yeah.
years ago, yeah. We did have, there was a gentleman from, was it someone from West Point or someone from the DOT or someone that was talking about the road into West 208?
218?
218 into West Point, was talking about the road that washed out, there was a conversation.
Ecos came
Person that
the
came-
Oh,
one
Chris
day.
Ekus came.
Chris
Yeah.
Ekus came
to
one day
talk
and
about-
said they were talking about turning that into a park
Yeah.
instead of a
Close it
road.
down basically
which
and
is
turn it into a
madness,
walking.
But they're gonna have a public hearing.
I actually drove that today.
I've never
In-
seen
in-
anything
In
like
the downpour.
that since you
I
mentioned it.
got nervous about whether there were gonna be
It's
rocks
been,
washing onto it.
it's been considered before.
I was just, it struck me that person did speak, or that,
Leave
that
that
there was
outta
a
here.
discussion about it that it just struck me when I read this. Anyways,
I would not recommend.
I would imagine no one in the town is wanting that
I
road
live
to
in the
go away.
village, we
It's
would not
A
recommend.
state highway, it's not our problem.
Yeah.
It's fun to hike.
Not fun to drive in the
The only thing I see that, it might be somewhere else is, so protecting areas that we know are prone to flooding from future building. So,
Yes, I was just about to say, one thing I left out of here is exactly what you just said, and also, not to get too controversial, but there's the whole planned retreat thing that lots of folks are talking about, you know.
I don't know what that is.
Well, you know, we have homes that are in 100 and 500-year floodplains that are constantly getting hit with flooding, then, you know, you basically have situations where a home will be bought out and raised.
Oh, we've had a few.
Yeah,
Recently.
We have
and then,
currently.
you know, more
Yes.
green infrastructure can be brought in
Right,
to
I would just
control that
mention
flooding.
that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be included.
So the county just, I didn't help the town of Cornwall with this, but the town should have just received back its FEMA annex from the Orange County Hazard Mitigation Plan. I don't know if MH&E helped you with that or someone else did, but,
Get that?
Yeah, we had edits and we were going back and forth and we had to send it back in. And
I'm saying that only because I don't want anything in this plan to conflict with the mitigations that are already agreed to, and not because those mitigations would have been agreed to in February and March. I don't wanna revisit that in any way, because again, they're whatever edits, and once you don't want FEMA to have to read anything of yours twice, cause I'm pretty sure that they probably delivered that in July and.
And they can't read.
Yeah, there's the county has retained a consultant to try to do that. It's taken quite a bit of time, so I'm not suggesting at all to revisit that. I just don't wanna conflict with anything that that
Well, could you
document
just
says.
match?
Yeah, we can just make sure that says the same thing, because that is one of the recommendations, that is one of the standard FEMA recommendations, is that the town could obviously buy properties in flood-prone, areas.
And also just exactly what Amy said, I can't remember the exact wording,
She
but
said
like
construction in floodplains, which is a
yeah,
discouraged
like
development in
rethink-
floodplains,
Right, yeah.
is under promote smart growth,
Yeah.
and I think it's actually mentioned
Yeah,
in
the
multiple.
discouraged development in floodplains, okay,
It's-
so that,
Yeah, that's in here, and then it's in the environmental resources section,
okay,
right?
okay.
Climate smart communities is the next one, which I think that we've talked about, and not just, and then I do have the link to that program if anyone wants to read more about it or what the,
Yeah, and I put in continue because we've already started.
yes.
We had some
Yeah.
that qualified.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the pledge is the first step, right, in
Right.
forming the committee, so that's
Right.
already in process.
yeah.
Again, energy efficiency, retrofitting existing homes, commercial buildings, that's kind of the same stricter energy codes that use that language again. I think this language is slightly more watered down than the language in the first one that we talked about, but,
Yeah, and that
It's the
and
same thought
encourage
process.
can mean just pointing residents towards state resources, you know, and rebates and things like that. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to mean the town doing, you know, doing those things
I
themselves.
will tell you, unless you incentivize it, it doesn't happen, just saying.
Should we mention something under, and not to backtrack, the critical infrastructure about trying to bury electric wires?
for new construction, or burying,
Or existing ones, I've been thinking along, I mean, we have all of those,
I think the problem wasn't the issue like the cost to the
I
homeowners
know-
themselves?
or,
They would have to agree to
the,
having the line
It was
What
the
about the ones on-
connections.
to their house.
It wasn't so much the running everything underground, it was the underground connection
Okay.
from that
To the houses.
houses.
That is one of the big concerns when the discussion of doing Main Street.
isn't it,
But
you
it-
have to
but
do a
it-
feasibility study with,
Well,
with
First
your
you-
electric provider, and if you do, the municipality has to do a feasibility study and put down like $1 jillion deposit.
I mean, I had this discussion with the Central Hudson rep in a chamber meeting years ago, and they just don't wanna hear about it.
Yeah.
If they're not willing to even, discuss it, they're driving that train.
so moving on.
Yeah.
Well,
Encourage it in new construction.
Yeah, I hate to
Encourage
skip
it
it
in new
entirely.
I think it's
There's-
required for
New
new construction.
subdivisions, and I don't remember the house
It is.
count,
It
but
is
new
required,
subdivisions,
yes.
you have to underground the utilities.
Yeah.
I know the development behind me on
I
Gate
would
Place.
encourage it in any new development as a recommendation,
I
but in
think-
any new built
It's
construction.
required.
It's
Well,
in
it's
our,
already
it's
required.
in our code,
Today,
So
required.
if I build a new house, I have to have all my lines underground.
No, it's a,
That's what I just said.
it's,
Subdivision.
The
it's in a,
subdivision.
it's in a subdivision.
No, I mean new construction.
Just all the
The
lines
infrastructure
would
isn't there
not
to
be,
do it.
there would
Yeah.
not be poles and lines along the road, all of that would be buried.
That's in a new subdivision. If you were to do it, for instance, on,
So
on
like
the-
mine are all underground. They go underground and they go to the pole on mountain and then it goes from there.
if you were to try and do that like with new construction on Long Hill Road, which is, there were just 2 houses built there in the last year, everything's up in the trees. so-
Why?
Because that's the way that
But if you make it a requirement,
But
then-
isn't this,
this is what I'm trying to say, like make it a requirement. New construction, the wire's gotta be underground.
Well, then we're getting back to
You need
if you're
to-
making it prohibitively expensive by burying.
Well, at
For-
that
for
moment,
individual
you're-
homes.
You're, if it's brand new construction, you're bringing in a power line, you're bringing in phone lines, you're bringing in everything else. Why not just put your electric line under there too? You're already digging up everything.
You already are digging
It's
up everything for
Two
your
things,
construction.
if you're building a new subdivision, everything has to be underground. If you're building a single-family home on a lot
You're running
where
phone
the
and
subdivision
wires.
was constructed in 1960, when all the lines are already there, if the poles and the lines are already there, then yes, the house is gonna be there and it's gonna connect like everybody else, because it would be cost prohibitive, or also Central Hudson would just tell you, yeah, we'll be there
Yeah, they wouldn't do
6
it.
years from now. To either move your pole or run your lines from your neighbors, because you have to think about neighbors' lines are on poles, and it's much more complicated when that infrastructure is in place. A new subdivision with new houses, everything would be required to be underground.
Okay, so, sorry. to-
That's okay.
Clean energy and greenhouse gases.
No, it was an important distinction. Climate smart communities, municipal clean fleets, that's also something that is part of climate smart communities, that's one of the tasks that you can choose to undertake, but, it's
It's on the
fine as a
bottom, right?
standalone as well.
oh, there we go.
It's
You were
the,
there.
this town, again, kind of the difference in a town versus a city, but this town, the municipal vehicles, town of Cornwall municipal vehicles are probably mostly highway, which are probably trucks for a reason, which may or may not be able to actually convert to, like an electric vehicle.
You can't take an electric plow truck up Mine Hill.
Isn't there a state law in place that is like gradually being phased in, but the governor and the legislature may push it back? Like, that's actually currently in place.
Municipalities are very upset about that.
Yeah, and like the highway, superintendent's association is pushing it back. I mean, it's likely, I don't
This is
think it'll be
fun.
scrapped, but I think, yeah, because basically you get a couple hours of charge and you can't do a plow route.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, 20 years from now,
No, yeah, no,
We
20
can
years
have
from
this
now,
whole
yes,
different
it
conversation.
could very
20
likely
years
be.
from now,
yeah.
I'm
I
not
think
gonna
it-
be working on a count.
it can't hurt to
But your ambulance
to
will
mention
be
it.
electric.
Oh,
Yeah,
good to
like
know.
I said, it's one of the tasks under climate smart communities, but I'm just
That's good one, Susan.
trying to point out the difference between doing that in a smaller municipality like the town of Cornwall that
Yeah.
doesn't have, you don't have a assessor that's driving around, you don't have inspectors that are driving around, like the
Right.
county has a
You
whole
don't have a
fleet
fleet of
Right,
buses,
of-
right,
of,
right.
You know.
or people that are driving cars around, you
Yeah.
have
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the county.
we
has
highway
buses.
vehicles, and that's really
We have
probably it, you have
that
some
converted
parks.
cop car that was being talked about at some last meeting.
Currently, the vehicles don't exist that can accommodate our needs, except for, passenger vehicles.
Well, I mean, is this, so then, like, we could talk all night, but is this succinct enough? Like, does this say enough? of,
Yep.
Yeah, continue to pursue, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's almost your
And in
bedtime.
fact,
That's part of
Thank
climate
you.
smart.
Take talk.
Yeah. We have,
You have 6
all right,
minutes.
My last point with regard, the last two were both regarding solar. I did speak with Gary to make sure that I knew what I was talking about. The town permits rooftop solar, with building permit, no planning board review is required. This discusses rooftop solar for commercial installations. There's no, again, it's permitted, but there's no zoning related to it, so there would be no no actual review, but if someone wanted to propose it as part of their commercial site plan, that would be fine. Outside of ridge preservation, which I think is important because even though it says non-reflective or whatever, it's gonna raise the roof up and keep it out of ridge preservation. Large scale installations currently not permitted in the town. And this, obviously, this recommendation talks about brownfields, which you might imagine Cornwall has one that I can think of. Can you think of another one besides?
Yeah, one brownfield and the closed dump, right?
So the brownfield site and then ag, I think that ag could make sense. I've seen those work in the town of Minnesink, in the town of Warwick, they allow them. For the most part, if we want to allow those, I just think that's gonna have to be a zoning recommendation to allow them, and we're gonna have to come up with a lot of recommendations
We're
and
supposed to have
bulk
some-
and all of that.
I'm in favor of
Yeah.
proposing them for ag specifically.
Weren't they supposed to build that field over by Scunnamunk, the one trailhead over there by the highway? And I remember because my
So they were
friends.
gonna do solar there?
Yeah, they were gonna do a whole solar field, cause she lived across the street, so it was an issue.
The farm that's on across from
Yep.
the Scunnamunk Meadows right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, they were gonna have solar panels there. I mean,
Uh-huh.
what, is there a downside to this, other than visually, somebody doesn't wanna be looking at a solar field?
No, an ag I think is a better idea than clearing mass amounts of trees
Well, it
to
was a
put these
farm.
in. So
It
I think
was a
an
farm,
ag
that's
property, I
okay.
think makes a ton more sense than, you've seen them in town of Goshen. I know they've cleared, hundreds of acres of trees to put in these solar farms, and just seems like not
Yeah.
any type of environmental conservation
Yeah, it
whatsoever.
seems
Yeah,
like you
down-
don't
I mean,
need
down-
cornfields, but
solar
yeah,
arrays
open fields.
can be deconstructed a lot easier than fracked gas burning electrical plants. And trees can be planted, but you're talking decades and decades of.
My son has
remediation.
solar panels behind his house on his farm in Ankrum. And I assume it was a permitted use, because, the Columbia
So
Land
I'd like the
Conservancy owns
recommendation, to be able to put it in an ag field.
Okay, then I won't, so I think we'll word it this way as opposed to in particular zones. So that it's limited just to these types of properties and not permitted throughout. I will actually take a look to see, because for large scale commercial installations, you do need, power.
Right, you have to be close to pretty hefty.
So I don't wanna make any
utility
recommendations in the plan that
infrastructure.
are infeasible by saying, look, there's not enough power in any of these properties, but that's not to say that a farm can go anywhere, so I will do that, okay. I wanna make sure that everyone's good with that as opposed to allowing it in a particular zone.
Is there no mention about wind turbines?
The code does permit wind turbines today,
It does.
yes.
There was
We could encourage that.
restriction on the amount of property you needed in order to install a wind turbine. Was that removed from the code? That was in the code, I don't know how long ago.
No one's built any.
Yeah.
Well,
No, but as the technology has improved, it's no longer, you don't need to have this 200-foot tall massive structure. There's a number of wind turbines now that can be
Costs will come down,
adapted.
there'll be more innovation
Yeah,
around it.
and so as long as we are encouraging that,
yeah,
again.
people get them just for their home,
Yeah,
home,
yeah.
single home.
Okay, does this wrap this discussion up?
Yes.
Because
I feel like
it's almost bedtime.
Yeah.
Let's have dinner
Just wanna
first.
talk about
in
the
15
next
minutes.
meeting.
Well, I wanna,
We do need public
I want
comment.
to allow public comment, but I'd like to limit it to things that are specifically comp plan related. And please be as brief as possible and be, cognizant of our time. So is there public comment? Greg?
Greg Roby, Middle Spring. Woo-hoo! I've been sitting for a while. It's a slight disadvantage not to have minutes for tonight, since the minutes would have reflected what was recorded relative to the public meeting. So that sucks. The most recent comments about solar and wind and stuff like that, I'm not hearing hydrogen being mentioned. We did parallel rulemaking at the federal level, so oil companies have pre-exempted emission, pre-qualified for 100% of the hydrogen credits for doing the frac stuff they can do. So you have, that was done under the IRA in 2022. So you need, all of your solar projects like in Maine are being hooked into with hydrogen, because that becomes the chemical battery to hold the energy, because of your restriction of how much energy you can get into the grid. It's not happening yet, but it's being planned for. Whether it actually gets rolled out, and in the current administration it will not. But because of the ability to securitize the equipment and sell both the credits and the securitized property, this is Wall Street's dream. This is where they get their new debt. So I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to really be able to advise, because I'm not sure anybody at this point knows exactly when they're gonna do whatever they've allowed for. But those tax credits are in place, they're the law. They, up until 2032, they could be applied for, and they go for 10 years, and they sunset unless they're extended.
So here's what I'm gonna suggest.
Yes.
If you have documentation on this that you want us to consider, why don't you send it to me, and I will share it with the committee, and we can take it up when we have something to actually refer to.
The conversation was very broad about the solar and the turbines. This is just another thing when it doesn't exist.
Okay.
But it's coming there. The other thing that occurred to me, this could be a recommendation, is the concept of advices and queries around energy and the environment. That this could be something that it would be, like right now, your plan will have in it a stipulation of when it's going to be reviewed, minimum, maximum, whatever that term is, because it's in the law. But to have it as a dynamic thing, so the board would have as an annual thing, going through a series of, this is what is recommended and how are we doing. Not because it's going to change anything other than a conversation in the community, because right now it is politically untenable to do stuff around the environment, climate change, because there's a strong voting bloc that believe it's fiction. So that conversation needs to shift, and if it came as a recommendation, then the politicians have cover.
Okay.
Because it's not tenable politically to bring it up, or at least that's my experience.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and I think the last one was, I tried to find my notes, Jason. You made a mention during the public hearing that did relate to finances. The part of the constraints was to help the town, and we do, got a third of our property tax exempt. So therefore, I believe it is part of the charges to the committee, indirectly, to look at income tax instead of property tax for funding our governance.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Old business, new business?
Next meeting?
Next meeting? Do we want to meet in 2 weeks, as we've been doing? The room is ours for the remainder of the calendar year for the second and fourth Monday. I guess my next question is to Kristen. Are we gonna have something that you want us to review in 2 weeks?
Yes, I have it ready. The next chapter for review is the final chapter of the document, which is chapter 9, and that is implementation.
Okay.
And so what you're going to have is a small bit of narrative on implementation of the plan, and then you're gonna have a chart, and that's gonna have every single recommendation that we've discussed, including those that I'll add with respect to what we've discussed tonight. Every recommendation by chapter, and it'll be this committee's job to look at those recommendations and determine whether they should be deemed an immediate priority, short-term, long-term, ongoing, or something in between. And that's the last thing that we gotta do, and that's it.
I will be sad to, if that's gonna be on November 24th, I won't make it. I will be sad to miss that
That's
meeting,
gonna
'cause
be
it sounds
actually
important.
a very tough,
I won't be
complex
here
and
that
tough
Tuesday,
So-
at that
task.
night either.
You're not
So,
gonna be there
and-
that night either.
Yeah. So can we just do it
All right.
tonight?
So-
Can we just push it?
Let me find a calendar because I can't,
We have a meeting already scheduled on the 8th, I believe,
on the
of
8th
December.
of December?
Yep.
I'm okay with, I don't really wanna add anything to my schedule the week of Thanksgiving.
That would be great.
So if we wanna put it off until the next meeting that's on the schedule, I think that makes perfect sense. It may mean that we need to have another meeting subsequent to that. We can discuss
We
that.
have a placeholder for the meeting on the 22nd of December,
Okay, so then we won't
which
meet,
could very well be the last meeting.
we won't meet in 2 weeks. We will, or
So,
the second
at what point,
Monday.
just curious, cause in the process, so let's say we go back, cause now we've all been discussing a lot more, so we may change some of our recommendations and stuff just based on, input from the community. I definitely wanna look at the stuff that they discussed and then look back at now what we're recommending, and there may be some tweaking and all that. At what point do you, Dominic, take a look at it from a legal perspective to say these recommendations should be tightened or not, or you shouldn't say this, it would be better to say it that way, or that, when do you give it your overview?
When Kristen sends it.
I was like, I can't wait to hear this.
We all knew that was coming.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can, we do this a lot. You can wordsmith me at any time you'd like. Or you can scribble on the chapter 9 when I send it out, or whatever you.
How soon, will you still send it out soon, just to give us more time to look?
Or
through that?
soon-ish,
That'd be
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And in terms of steps, so, we get to the end of this process, there'll be a draft. And then that draft, does that go to county planning before
No.
public hearing?
It goes, it's the town board, if they're satisfied with how it's presented, they
Yeah.
have the opportunity to change it, or they could send it back to the committee, or they can accept it and move it on, and then they start that process, and they would refer it to the county.
Okay, so it's after the town has basically accepted the draft.
Correct.
Okay, got it, got it.
Your job is to prepare this draft, and
Right.
then the town board considers it.
Okay, got it. I just wasn't sure what happened when.
I'm gonna send this draft to Steve Gabba this week too, because he told me I couldn't get it done by the end of the year.
Take that.
So-
Tell Gabba
take
that
that.
he's gonna get a.
Not to
this draft
belabor the
before-
point, but
What was
when there-
what was the wager?
When there is a public
Gabba's already
hearing,
gone from the
that'll
town,
be the
so I
town
won't
board
pick on it
basically
anymore.
calling that public hearing, not us, right? Okay, got it.
Yeah, once we turn it over,
But
they say thank you.
I think before we need, my preference would be to have, after you put it together, that Dominic has looked at it, and then we have a discussion, because I don't wanna waste our energy and say yes, no, and then Dominic says, what, are you out of your mind, or we're
Right,
like, this is not a good idea, so.
That's fine.
So maybe it's a good idea that it's not till December 8th, because that'll give everybody a little more time to review.
If I don't write that down, we never had this conversation.
It's gonna be great.
Okay.
The ace is already in our phone.
Yeah, do it. I was just gonna, I was sitting here and we'll see from Josh, be like, yeah, I'll do that.
All right, I will make sure, I know that when I last checked with the clerk's office, we have the room.
Well, it's all in our calendars already, so I'm going to assume that that meant that you also had already cleared it.
Oh, yeah. But I will verify.
Yeah.
Oh, so they slid you into, yeah.
Well, we missed bedtime by 10 minutes.
We
I have dinner first, people.
I didn't eat dinner yet.
Very New York is like, go birds right now.
Wait, are we adjourned?
We are adjourned.
Yes.
Thank you, Oscar.
Congratulations.